Victime Paschali laudes, immolent Christiani.
Agnus redemptores, Christus innocens Patri, reconciliavit peccatorem.
Mors et vita duello conflixere mirando.
So I want to make a disclaimer. The first disclaimer I'm putting up is that I am not the author of this program. This program belongs to the Pastoral Dominican Pastoral Institute. So they just asked me to come and be a facilitator at this today's section. So we give them all the credit and all whatever they deserve. So it's a program of the Dominican Institute of Pastoral Studies. So we thank them. We thank you very much, and we say, please take our message to the management of the Pastoral Institute for the work they are doing in the diocese. I also want to thank the GNCC who are here to help us to reach as many people as possible. So while we are few of us are here, there will be other people who will join us online as we move along. So that is number one. Then I have somehow given a kind of a brief outline of what today will look like. So we will look at the outline, and then looking at the outline, then there are a few things that I just want to bring in before we move into the outline. So remember, we are dealing with the subject matter of Triduum, the Triduum and the Paschal mystery. So we will look at the Paschal mystery, we will look at Triduum, we will look at the biblical foundation, where are these things founded, and then we look at the historical foundation as well. Then we look at the significance of the Triduum, and we look at the celebrations of the Triduum, and then we look at the church's liturgical laws governing the Triduum, and then we look at questions, answers, and discussions that we follow. But let me start on a note of question and then see what you think. So, the first one is, when does Lent begin and when does it end? When does Lent begin and when does Lent end? So that is the first thing that every Christian should be asking. When does the Lent begin and when does it really end? So because there are different opinions, and there are among the Christian churches like the Anglicans, the Methodists, the Presbyterians, the Eastern Orthodox Church. So there are different opinions and different practices within this Lent. So remember, we are Catholic Church. We belong to the Roman Rite. So we also have our own practice when it begins and when it ends. So as matured Christians, we should be able to know what these churches think and what they think, how they do it, and what we do and why we do it the way we do them. So if I may quickly sum your opinion, when do you think that the Lent, because we say that Lent is 40 days, right? The 40 days of Lent. But if you look at the Lent from Ash Wednesday to Easter Sunday, you will have 47 days. So, but we are saying that Lent is 40 days of Lent. So, are we talking of the Lent? And then if we talk of the days of the fasting, the fasting, when does the Lenten fast begin and when does it end? So, when does the Lenten fast begin and when does it end? So some of these are little liturgical matters that sometimes we take them for granted, but they are very rich and they can help us to understand what we are doing and how we are doing it, what we are celebrating and how we are celebrating it. So I know you are looking at me to give you answers on this very one. But don't worry. Yes. So, yeah, exactly. All the Sundays are not counted as Lent. So if you remove the Easter Sunday, you will be left with 6. And then if you remove the 6 other Sundays, first Sunday, second Sunday, third Sunday, fourth Sunday, fifth Sunday, and Paschal, that is the Palm Sunday, that is 6. So if you remove these, then you are left with 40 days of Lent. So, but there is something that has happened recently. So the church through around 1950, what we call the liturgical renovation or the liturgical renewal. So the Pope decided to kind of create the Triduum. That is the Triduum, which we are discussing now, as a sub-liturgical calendar, the liturgical calendar within the calendar itself, a sub team within the main team. That is, you have the normal liturgical season, you have the ordinary time, Christmas, Advent, Christmas, Lent, Eastertide, and all those. So within that Lenten period, the church now decide to create the Triduum as a special time within that period of Lent. So if you look at some calendars, or if you look at some liturgical diary or liturgical order, don't be surprised if you see them carving out the Triduum as a different liturgical time. Are you with me? So in some research, this started from 1955. So the church started carving out the Triduum as a special liturgical time within the big umbrella of Lenten season. So as a way of introduction, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, the Catechism, CCC, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 654, teaches, this is what it teaches, that the Paschal mystery has 2 aspects. The Paschal mystery, this what we are discussing today, has 2 aspects. The first aspect, the death of Jesus Christ, which liberated us from sin. And the second aspect, the resurrection of Jesus, which opened for us the way of new life. So these are the 2 aspects. The death of Jesus Christ, which liberated us from sin, and the second aspect, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, which opened for us the way of new life. And then this sacred truth is the foundation of the Catholic, indeed Christian belief. So all our Catholic belief and all our Christian belief is based on these 2 major principles. Based on this major principles. Principle number 1, the death of Jesus Christ liberated us from sin. Principle number 2, the resurrection of Jesus Christ opened the way of new life. So the whole Catholic belief and the whole Christian belief is based on this. So in this presentation, I will expand these 2 aspects to deepen our understanding of our faith in the Paschal mystery. So that is just to deepen these 2 aspects so that we understand. And the way we do it, first of all, let's begin to understand these things. Paschal mystery. Paschal mystery. Paschal mystery are just the 2 words there, Paschal and mystery. So, first of all, I looked them up to make sure that what I know in theology and what is there in ordinary English language, that there is a correspondence. Now, in just looking at the American Heritage Dictionary of the English language, Paschal, that fascinated me so much. They say Paschal denotes of or pertaining to the Passover of Easter. So by the mere mentioning of Paschal, you are already thinking of the Easter event. That's what it means. Whether in the ordinary English usage or in the theological usage or in the church usage, once you mention Paschal, you are mentioning about the Easter. So, in and through the Paschal mystery, Jesus fulfills Passover of the Old Testament. So, there is a Passover in the Old Testament, which we all know. We read it, especially we are going to see it on Holy Thursday. So reading on Holy Thursday, where God commanded the people of Israel to kill the lamb and place the blood on the lintel, doorpost, so that the angel of death will pass over any house that contains that blood. So that is the action that has been there in the Old Testament, action of Passover. So we are also reenacting that action of Passover through the Paschal mystery. So Jesus fulfills the Passover of the Old Testament when the plague passed over houses with posts sprinkled with blood. As the Catechism of the Christian Church teaches, Christ's work of redemption is accomplished principally by the passion, death, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And glorious ascension, whereby dying, as we proclaim in Mass, by dying, he destroyed our death, and rising, he restored our life. By dying, that is echoing those two principles I mentioned before. By dying, he destroyed our death, and by rising, he restored our life. This is the teaching of the Catholic Church. So now we look at the mystery. We have looked at Paschal, that Paschal connotes Easter activities. Then what is mystery? Mystery, as we know, is a religious truth that one can know only by revelation and cannot be fully understood. That is what we are taught. That is the knowledge we have right from our days of the First Holy Communion, that mystery is a religious knowledge which we cannot fully comprehend. We can know certain things here and there, but we cannot fully comprehend it. So, in faith, we participate in the Paschal mystery. This is very important, In faith, this action we are talking about, Paschal mystery, Triduum, all these things are action of faith. So through faith, we participate in the Paschal mystery, primarily during the sacred Triduum. The sacred Triduum, we are talking of the Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Easter Sunday. Now, I want you to take note of this last paragraph. It's very important. Chronologically, the sacred event is on separate days. So we have it on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But they are not separate activities. They are one activity which we celebrate on 3 different days. So the whole Triduum is one activity. Do you follow me here? So the whole activity, the whole Triduum is one activity of the passion, death, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's one action celebrated in 3 days. This is very important. So that's what I'm trying to express there. But liturgically, the Triduum is one sacred event. It's one sacred event. The temporal and the divine are one in our redemption. Now, the Paschal mystery, this is a point of reflection for each and every one of us. The Paschal mystery is our hearts and minds accompanying Jesus in his passion, death, and resurrection. This is our take home. This is our take home of being part of this program. So our take home is this, that the Paschal mystery is our hearts and our minds accompanying Jesus in his passion, death, and resurrection. And that is why anybody who calls himself or herself a true Christian not even to talk of a Catholic. If you call yourself a true Christian, and above all, a Catholic, you should be able to participate on the Triduum. The only thing that can take any Catholic away from the Triduum is serious sickness. That is the only thing that can take a Catholic away. Or death. Death of a husband, death of a wife, death of a child. These are things that could happen and may take somebody out of this event. But apart from this, if you call yourself a Catholic, a Christian, you must never take yourself out of this Christian event of the Triduum. So now, the Triduum. So we have looked at the Paschal mystery. So now let's look at the Triduum. So a Triduum is a 3-day period of prayer. Please note that very well. It's a 3-day period of prayer. A Triduum is a 3-day period of prayer, usually in preparation for an important feast or in celebration of that feast. So look, when you talk of that, we know we have 9 days novena, 7 days novena, and we have 21 days novena. We have so many days of novena. So also, when you talk of Triduum, Triduum means 3 days. 3 days. 3 days. So 3 days. So these 3 days is 3 days of prayer, 3 days of preparation for important feast. For instance, those of us here in St. Andrew the Apostle, we may decide to have a Triduum before the feast of St. Andrew the Apostle. We can have a Triduum before the feast of St. Andrew the Apostle. We can have a Triduum before the 15th of August. That is the feast of the Assumption of the Blessed Mary into heaven. So you can have a Triduum, that is 3 days of prayer and preparation. Just as you have 9 days novena, and you have 7 days, you have 14 days, you have 21 days. So it's a period of days, Triduum, period of 3 days. And this period of 3 days is always dedicated to prayer and preparation for an important feast. Are you with me so far? Yes. So then, now that is Triduum. But when you come down and say Paschal Triduum, so now you are specific. Triduum is general. You can use Triduum anywhere. But when you come specifically to Paschal Triduum, you are all now, this Paschal Triduum is also known as Holy Triduum or Easter Triduum. That is referring specifically to this particular 3 days of preparation or 3 days of celebration of the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So the final 3 days of Lent and Holy Week is what we refer to as the Triduum. The final 3 days of Lent or Holy Week is the Triduum. And that is the 3 days. It celebrates the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Although it is celebrated over 3 days, but it refers to the one single event of our salvation. This is coming up again and again. So that with this, you will, when you sit with people and discuss with them, and they are talking to you, I will go for, this is what our people do. I will go for Holy Thursday, but I may not be able to go Good Friday. Then I might manage to come back on Holy Saturday night. That person is not celebrating the Triduum because these things are tied together. You don't do one and leave one. It's a complete package. So that at times when we buy the phone, you get the phone, you get the charger. So, and sometimes sometimes you get the earpiece. So, but especially phone, charger, and the phone itself. It's just like saying, okay, I'm buying this phone, but I'm taking the charger. I will not take the phone. I will take the charger. I will not take the phone. Or I will take the phone. I will not take the charger. So removing any aspect of this triduum is you are not taking the bulk of the thing. So it has to be taken together as one unit. So now, biblical foundations. In this biblical foundation, I divided it into two. The first one has to do with the New Testament. And then the last one has to do with Old Testament. And remember, I'm not giving you the whole Lenten foundation. I'm not talking about the foundation of Lent in the Bible. No. I'm specific about the Triduum, the foundation of the Triduum in the Bible. So, we start with the first one, which is Maundy Thursday, or what we call Holy Thursday. Actually, in many places, the real name is Maundy Thursday. From the word mandatum, the Latin word mandatum, that is a mandate, a command. And that comes from the reading of that particular day. This is my commandment. Love one another. That is where it derives its name, mandatum, Maundy Thursday. This day celebrates the Last Supper, where Jesus instituted Eucharist. The key scriptural reference when we talk about the Maundy Thursday is found in Luke 22:19-20. Do you want us to read it? So what does it read? Read together with me. 1 to go. And he took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way, after the supper, he took the cup, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you." That is the mandate. So this Maundy Thursday, you will have so many mandates in it. The mandate to love one another, the mandate to celebrate the Eucharist, the mandate for several things. And that is where it derives its name, Maundy Thursday, the Thursday of the mandate that Jesus has given us. Especially the mandate to wash one another's feet. We don't practice it here yet, but maybe some of us who are from other countries, like Sister Claire, what happens in your area? I will give an example, and then you can tell us. In some of the places I have worked, on this Maundy Thursday, during the washing of feet, then we will take 12 persons, wash their feet in that same program. Then after washing their feet, then we give them 12 buckets of water and 12 towels, and they go into the community and wash the leg of every person in the church. You practice it here in the past. Have you seen where it is practiced? Is it practiced out there in Trinidad? Okay. So it is a practice that is growing. It is growing now, that the mandate is not only for the priest to wash the leg of the people. So the mandate is for all of us. So the priest takes 12, wash their feet, and then that 12 go into the community and wash their feet as well. Then if it is a bigger community, where I have seen some bigger communities, like where you have up to 1,200 people coming for Maundy Thursday Mass. So that 12 will wash the leg of another 12. Then that another 12 will, once they wash your feet, you go out to wash another 12 persons' feet. So that is the mandate. Love one another as I have loved you. So I don't know if we are going to get to that level whereby we also practice it, not only leaving it for the priest to wash the feet. And I tell you, many people don't know that night is always difficult for priests, especially those of us who are getting old. Because by the time you kneel down and wash the feet of this person, when you are waking up, your leg is the voice is already in trouble, and you do it for 12. So I think we have to get many more lay people involved so that we all have the same experience. And what does it really mean? It means that watching one another's feet, being at the service of one another is never easy. We know it, but the truth is that it is never easy. And when we do that practical action, it reports on your waist, it reports on your legs, it reports everywhere. So that is the biblical foundation. That is Luke chapter what? Luke chapter 22, 19 to this. So now what of the biblical foundation for Good Friday? So for Good Friday, first of all, this day marks the crucifixion and death of Jesus. Important passages include John 19, 16 to 20. John 19, 16 to 20. This passage details the events leading to Jesus' crucifixion, his final words on the cross, and his death on the cross. There is another passage, Matthew 27, 45 to 54. This account describes the darkness that falls over the land and the moment of Jesus' death, including the tearing of the temple curtain. These are the two core passages when you talk of New Testament and the celebration of Good Friday within the Triduum. Now, Holy Saturday and the Easter Sunday, this period reflects on Jesus' burial and culminates in his resurrection. So the key scriptural passages include Matthew 28, 1 to 10. Then this passage narrates the discovery of the empty tomb by Mary Magdalene and the other women, and the angel's announcement of Jesus' resurrection, Matthew 28, 1 to 10. And there is another passage, Luke 24, 1 to 7. This passage, that is similar to Matthew, this particular passage, this account describes the women finding the tomb empty and being told that Jesus has risen. So the three events of the Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Holy Saturday stroke Easter are biblically grounded. They are grounded in our Bible, in our scriptures. So now let's look at some biblical foundation of this Triduum, and their significance. They somehow they point us in the Old Testament. They point us to what we are doing. One of the pointers on the third day is Exodus 19, 16 to 19. On the third day, God appeared to Moses at Mount Sinai in the midst of fire and smoke. Remember, Moses was running away. You remember the story. So he was running away. It was on his third day of running away that he encountered the burning bush. 3 days. 3 days. Does it ring bell in your ear? The 3 days, the Triduum, the 3 days. Then there is another 3 days in Exodus 10:22. The number also recalls the days that the plague of darkness afflicted the Egyptians. They had 3 days of darkness. 3 days of darkness. 3 days. The days Moses and the Israelites wandered in the desert before finding water at Marah. So when they were looking for water, they had to find water for 3 days. Then that is also significance of the 3 days, pointing out to something that is coming ahead of us. That is in Exodus 15:22. 3 days of Esther's fast. You remember the story of Esther. And then Esther has to fast for 3 days before she could appear before the king to make a request for the freedom of her people. The 3 years. the 3 days. So there is also in 2 Kings 25. In 2 Kings 25, we talk about the days King Hezekiah was gravely ill. The 3 days that Hezekiah was gravely ill. This passage is very interesting because Hezekiah was sick. He was sick and almost at the point of death. And God sent a prophet to him and said, go and tell Hezekiah to prepare, that he is going to die. And so the prophet went and delivered the message to King Hezekiah and said, look, get your house in order, which means write your will and tell people to watch over your properties, who will get what. So he asked them to prepare. And so within that 3 days of Hezekiah's sickness is what we are saying here, that it is also a pointer to the 3 days. To the 3 days. It's a pointer. The pointer. Then you get to the Ezra chapter 8 verse 32. The number of days the exiles rested upon their return to Jerusalem. This is a very nice story. If you read it up, you will enjoy it in Ezra 8, 32, the whole of Ezra chapter 8. So, and then there is another one that is also a pointer in Jonah chapter 1, 17. The day Jonah was entombed, that is, he was in the womb of the belly of fish. So we always make a joke about this. We don't know whether it was Jonah who swallowed the fish or the fish that swallowed Jonah. But we know that it's swallowing somewhere along the line. Either Job is swallowing, either Jonah is swallowing, or the fish is swallowing Jonah. So, but the fact is that what is important to us is the 3 days. So all through the Old Testament, there has been a pointer of 3 days of event, 3 days of preparation, 3 days of activity, 3 days of action. So, and these 3 days of action is what we are now practicalizing in the 3 days. So there has been pointers to this in the Old Testament. The historical foundation of the Triduum. Remember, we are not talking of the land here. We are talking about those Triduum, the historical foundation of Triduum. Then the Holy Triduum has its root in early Christian practices. Please, this should ring bell. So it is not everything that is written in the Bible, as some of our Pentecostal brothers and sisters will always tell you, oh, where is it in the Bible? If it is not in the Bible, I will not believe. It is not everything that is explicit in the Bible. Some of the things that we do as Catholic Church are the things that we do based on the practice of the apostles. These are the things the apostles did, and then those who follow them did it, and those who follow them continue, and those who follow them continue. And it came down to us. And then are you now going to say, I'm throwing them away because they are not written anywhere? If you do that, you are stupid. You don't know what you are doing. It's just like maybe you wake up one morning and go to your mom's archive, maybe your mother who had died 40 years ago. And every person has been keeping that archive. That's maybe special jewelry on the neck that the woman used to wear. So maybe the immediate daughters and sons used that jewelry and placed it on a particular shelf and hung it there. So it has been there. Everybody, generations has died and the generations have come. So every generation that comes takes that jewel, puts them somewhere. To the extent that after some time, the whole house was destroyed. And in destroying the house, they removed that jewel and put it somewhere else in the new house. Then after 200 years of this jewelry hanging in the house in that particular position, you wake up one morning and say, I'm going to throw it away. What is this thing doing here? And yet, generations and generations before you preserve that jewelry. And you wake up and say, I'm going to throw it away because it is not written somewhere. Who does that? So these are the problems we are having with many of our Pentecostal brothers and sisters. We are not, you can believe whatever you want to believe, but please don't throw away the practices that has been there from the beginning till now. That is where the problem is. They want to throw them away. Oh, it's not in the scripture, throw it away. It's not in the scripture, throw it away. So, I was describing this sometime, the Hezekiah we just saw. One of the problems of Hezekiah that led to his sickness and his sickness was that he destroyed the bronze serpent that Moses erected for the people. So throughout generations, that bronze serpent that Moses erected was being preserved. But when Hezekiah came, one of the things he did was to destroy that serpent and say that, oh, it is against the law of God. The law of God said you must not carve out any image for thyself. And he destroyed it. And then we ask, are you greater than Moses, our father, who did this? And that is what many so zealous Christians are doing. They destroy tradition. They destroy what has been handed over to us in the name that these things are not in the scripture. And that is what we are saying, that the Triduum has its root in early Christian practices. So they may not have been written anywhere, but they were being practiced and people know it. People were doing it. You don't need to write it. For instance, those of us here who are here in St. Andrew the Apostle, every 30th of November, we celebrate the feast of St. Andrew the Apostle. Anybody who comes to this parish will automatically follow. So you don't just say, oh, I can't celebrate it because it is not written anywhere. So that is one of the things we are talking about here. That these Christian practices that commemorated the events of Jesus' final days as described in the New Testament. These are already described in the New Testament, but the nitty-gritty of which will be part of our discussion, the nitty-gritty of how these things are celebrated and done belong to the practice of the early Christians. Number two, by the 4th century, that is the 400 and 500 years of the church, within the first 400-500 years, with the legalization of Christianity under Emperor Constantine, when Emperor Constantine gave religion a legal status, recognizing them in the law of the state. So Emperor Constantine, the development of formalized liturgy. So the liturgy began to take shape. We began to formalize it. So for the past 400 years, there is no written or legalized way of doing things. So maybe what we are saying here is that the church, you remember, if you read the book of Revelation, the writer says, John, the writer which we ascribe to John says, to the 7 churches, the church in Laodicea, the church in Ephesus, and so on and so forth. So each church is an autonomous church. And this church is at the level of a diocese. So they are autonomous. Their bishop and the local clergy and then the workers in the church, they sit down and develop how we are going to celebrate a particular feast, a particular liturgy. So it was left for individual churches. But after 400 years, the church universal then came and said, okay, you are doing this in your place, you are doing this in your place, you are doing this in your place. Can we now agree and do them this way generally? And that is how we begin to have the format for the Eucharist, the celebration of the Mass. So that if you attend Mass here in Grenada, and if you go to Nigeria, you attend Mass, it may be, my language will be used, but you will follow the church. You will not miss anything. The only thing that you may not hear the preaching, but you will know the reading, that the first reading is being read. You will know when the psalm is being said. You will know when the second reading, you will know, you will recognize everything because it has been standardized and shared across the whole world. That when, when we travel, the priest, me in particular, sometimes you make a Passover, a stopover in Egypt, or you make a stopover in Turkey or France. And if you are making a crossover, when it is time for Mass, in most of these airports, we have chapel. Chapel for Christians and chapel for other churches. So the one in Gatwick Airport, the chapel in Gatwick Airport is managed by the MSPs, by one of us. So, and then in other airports, you have priests. So once you come to the airport and you identify yourself and show a valid ID card that you are a Catholic priest, you'll be allowed to use the chapel. So sometimes you notice that we may be up to, as it happened to me in France one occasion, we were up to seven priests from different nations. And we came at 12 o'clock to have Mass and then run for another, to catch our flights. And then some are speaking French, some are speaking Dutch, some are speaking English. And then all we say, the guy who was there, I think he's a Dutch guy, he speaks a little bit of English. He said, Mass, who? Celebrant. So we understood what he's saying, that who will be the chief celebrant? It's Mass, who? Mass, who? Celebrant. So it was communicated. So all of us, we can't speak, but we just do hand like this. We pointed hand at him. And then some said, oui, some said, yes. And then he became the chief celebrant. And he was speaking in Dutch. And we are all following. All we know that when it is time to stretch forth your hand, so you stretch forth your hand. And then if it happens to you, will be one of the concelebrants, like I was pointed to be one of the concelebrants. So when it comes, I pull the book, I did the English version of it. After the English version of it, he turned back to the Dutch. And I asked you, did God understand what we are saying? Did God understand what we were saying? Of course, he is God. So he created the languages and he speaks all of them. So that is what we mean by standardization. The church standardized the liturgical worship. As at that time, within the 400, 500 years after the death of Christ, that we began to have the Mass, the liturgy of the church standardized. And that continued over the years and is being upgraded. Recently, all of us were alive when we did the last upgrade. The Lord be with you and with your spirit. What do we use? I even forgotten what we used to say before. The Lord be with you and also with you. So the standardization has moved now. The Lord be with you and with your spirit. In the next 20 years, the children that will be born will not even know that we said something like, the Lord be with you and also with you. Because they will never be part of it. All they know is that the Lord be with you and with your spirit. And if you happen to be alive and tell them that, no, it is not the Lord be with you and with your spirit. It is the Lord be with you and also with you. They will look at you with suspicion and disbelief. So it is because of standardization. The thing has been standardized. And this standardization started from the 4th century AD by Christians under Emperor Constantine. The development and formalized liturgies began. These observances became more structured, as I'm describing. We have the liturgy. Then the Triduum. I tried to explain this at the beginning of the then the Triduum emerged as a distinct celebration. You know, they emerged as a tying together the three key moments. Go down. The three key moments. What are those three key moments? These are the three key moments. The three key moments of Monday, Thursday, that is commemorating the Last Supper and Jesus washing the disciples' feet. And then he tied it with Good Friday, marking the crucifixion and death of Jesus. He tied it with Holy Saturday, a day of waiting and preparation for the resurrection, culminating in the Easter Vigil. So when we talk about the Triduum, the Easter Vigil is the high point. You know, it's just like climbing. When you get to Easter Vigil, you have reached the height, and then you start descending. So so from Easter Vigil to Easter Sunday, you have reached the climax. So Easter Vigil with Easter Sunday is the climax of our liturgical worship and liturgical action. So after the Easter Vigil giving rise to the Easter Sunday, then after the Easter Sunday, everything begins to slide back until we get to the ordinary time of the year. Then, so these three were tied together. Historically, it's coming out the third time. Historically, these events were not always celebrated as a unified Triduum in the past. In the past, they were not celebrated as a unified Triduum. It is when the liturgy was organized that we began to celebrate the three as a unified one. In the past, the early Christians focused on Easter, Paschal, that is Easter Sunday, as the central feast. So before, the Easter Sunday was the central feast. You know, everything. Holy Saturday is not given attention. Holy Saturday was not even celebrated at night vigil. That night vigil was not there. That vigil was celebrated during the day. Some celebrate it at 8 a.m., some at 9 a.m. It was celebrated during the day. So the Holy Thursday event was not given any prominence at all. So all these things were scattered, you know, as the central feast, with Good Friday and Holy Saturday gradually gaining prominence. You know, so by the Middle Ages, the Roman Rite formalized the Triduum. We formalized the Triduum. Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, Vigil, and Easter Sunday. The Roman Rite. Remember, we belong to the Roman Rite, right? So I mentioned it that we belong to the Roman Rite. So we formalized the Triduum as a 3-day liturgical unit, a practice that was further refined during the Council of Trent in the 16th century. And later in the 20th century, with reforms like those of Pope Pius XII in 1955. So which restored the Easter Vigil to the night. So this Easter Vigil was just restored to night. Some were doing it in the morning, some were doing it in the afternoon, some were doing it in any time. But it was around 1955 that Pope Pius XII said, no, we are going to return it back to the original event of the time of Jesus Christ. So they brought it back to the night. It becomes what we normally call the mother of all vigils, the model of all vigils. That is why we say in the Catholic Church that the Easter Vigil is the highest vigil you can ever keep. Even if you go to the crusade and camps and you spend 21 days of vigil, that 21 days of vigil is not up to this one vigil. It is not up to this one vigil of Holy Saturday night. Are you still with me so far? Okay. So, the Triduum. Now, what are the significance of this Paschal Triduum? We have looked at the meanings. We have looked at the biblical foundations. We have looked at the historical foundations. Now, what are the significance of this Triduum? What are the significance? Number one, the Triduum, from a theological point of view, has the significance of maintaining the unity of the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. It maintains the unity. So it helps every Christian to understand that there is a unity between the passion, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Because without the passion, there will be no death. Without the death, there will be no resurrection. So there is a unity between the three. So number two, in the liturgy of the church, that is the sacraments, the sacramentals, the blessings, the acts of worship, all the forms of worship we give to God, Jesus is present to us anew. Jesus is present to us anew in the liturgy of the church. And this liturgy of the church, we are talking about the sacrament, the 7 sacraments. We are talking about the sacramentals, the rosary, the water, the oil, everything, the salt that we bless, the blessings that they pray for me, bless me, and the acts, or any acts of worship, our devotions in our society, in our different societies, Legion of Mary, charismatic, all these devotions we conduct, all these things, Jesus is present to us anew under sacramental signs and symbols, the living reality of his sacrifice on the cross and life-giving resurrection. That is what it means. So in the liturgy of the church, the sacrament, Jesus is present to us anew under sacramental signs and symbols, the living reality of his sacrifice on the cross and life-giving resurrection. Number 3, significance. The third significance of this Paschal Triduum. The third one. The Triduum invites us to fasting, prayer, and contemplation, allowing us to enter into the mystery of Christ's suffering and the joy of his resurrection. That is what we are doing. That is the significance of the Paschal mystery. And the fourth one, number 4, Triduum serves as a spiritual preparation. Serves as a spiritual preparation. The high point of your spiritual preparation. We have been preparing for 40 days. For 40 days. So we are preparing for 40 days. And when we have gone, now it comes to this particular time where we are saying, yeah, we have been passing through this time and we are coming to the last part of it. And we give special preparation, spiritual preparation. And that is why we encourage Christians to go to confession. We encourage Christians to give more charity. We encourage Christians to do everything within your power this time, because it is a special time or special spiritual preparations. So these are the few. There could be more, but I'm just working on what we can work with. Next. So, celebrations. Celebrations. This is where I didn't go into details because that is where the most discussion will happen. So, celebrations. Monday, Thursday, that is the Holy Thursday. The meaning, this named from the Latin mandatum, commandment. It recalls Jesus' new commandment to love one another as I have loved you. John 13:34. The washing of feet symbolizes humility and service, while the institution of the Eucharist at the Last Supper is central to Christian worship. Is central to Christian worship. Ritual. The Mass, that is the ritual that go on this Monday, Thursday, the rituals that go on. One of the rituals, the Mass ends with the stripping of the altar. Those of you who are in the liturgical acts, So this is immediately after this mass, the mass ends with the stripping of the altar, symbolizing Jesus' abandonment, and the Eucharist is moved to an altar of repose for adoration. So we will see more of this during the discussion. The next one, the Good Friday, meaning a sober day focused on the suffering and sacrificial death of Jesus on the cross, seen as the atonement for humanity's sins. It's a day of penance, fasting, and reflection. Very important. It is seen as a day of penance, fasting, and reflection. Does it mean we have not been fasting? We have been fasting. But this day, Good Friday, is a special one. So if you have been fasting from maybe breakfast, you may add lunch to eat on Good Friday. You fast from breakfast and lunch. So there must be something special you have to add to the fasting of Friday. And then the penance you have been doing, if you have been doing, maybe if you have been praying 15 decades of rosary, you can push it to 20. If you have been doing 20 decades of rosary, on that day, you do 20. So there must be something special you have to do on the Good Friday. The rituals, some of the rituals on Good Friday, number one, no mass is celebrated. No mass is celebrated on Good Friday. That we all know. It is a unique day in the calendar liturgy of the church. Instead, services include the reading of the Passion, veneration of the cross, and distribution of pre-consecrated communion. So those are some of the things we do and the ritual of this. Then Holy Saturday. On Holy Saturday, that is the Easter Vigil, you see, you notice that the whole day is quiet. The whole Saturday is quiet. Why is it? Why is it that the church says on that particular on Saturday that it is a day of prayer, still prayer and reflection, and that Christians should spend most of that day praying and reflecting because the Lord, the King, is in the tomb. The Lord lies in the tomb. So it is a day of reflection on the King that is in the tomb. So the activities begin. The Easter Vigil, held after nightfall, celebrates the resurrection, marking the transition from death to life and the triumph of light over darkness. And then the ritual, some of the rituals we put up on that Holy Saturday night, the vigil includes the lighting of the Paschal candle, the glorious exalted, that is the Easter proclamation, baptism, if you have, and the first Easter Mass is a joyous shift from mourning to celebration of joy. Okay. Now, this last part, the church's liturgical laws governing the Triduum. So, the church's liturgical, the laws are so many. So many. If you take up your missal, and any missal at all, whether the one in the church or the one you use, then you will see here. Look here, there are so many rights. So I just want to tell you that the liturgical laws of the church for Triduum are so many that we cannot cover them in this presentation. It is a different presentation. Even if you are to present something on the laws of liturgy, you can only take maybe you can say laws of liturgy on Monday, Thursday, that is Holy Thursday. You can do that for the whole day. Or you can do that of Good Friday. So the laws are little things, but very, very wonderful. So sometimes you see the priest quarreling on the altar with the mass servers, because maybe some of the things that he has instructed them, the young boys and girls have forgotten, and they are just doing what they want to do, or just behaving as if it is a normal Sunday mass. But the liturgy of this time, Triduum, is very different and very separate. That is why in my parish, if you are part of the liturgy team within the Holy Week from Palm Sunday to Easter Sunday, you must attend practice. Must. If you are not ready to attend the practice, we remove your name. So, as I'm talking to you now, practice is going on in my parish. So, the liturgy directors are working with them this morning, and in the afternoon, 3 p.m., I take over with those whom I have asked to come in the afternoon. That will include the mass servers, the Eucharistic ministers, and the other people who might be taking part in liturgy, or maybe those who went to work and they were not able to come in the morning. Because I explained to them, we are not saying that you cannot read. You can read. For sure, you can read. We have no problem that you can read. We are not saying you cannot sing. You can sing. But the liturgy of this time is quite different. There are so many liturgical rules and laws that we have to observe. For instance, on Good Friday, when the procession comes comes in front of the altar, the priest lies down. What do the people do? You see, the church recommends that when the priest lies down, the rest of us should kneel down. But in some places, you see, some people are sitting comfortably, some people are standing, and some people are looking ahead. It's just ignorance of what should be done. You don't blame them, because it is our responsibility to teach. And we are not teaching enough. So that's why I say to GNCC and to DIPS, thank you for giving us this type of opportunity so that we come and refresh our minds and go back to the parishes and see. We may not do everything in one day, but we say in Afrikaans, make mer prat ma. So that is little by little, then you will lick the soup that is hot. So you don't just pick the soup that is hot and pour them in your mouth, then you will be in trouble. But just little by little, you will get it through. So, however, we can handle some of them during the question and answer time. So when we get to that section, we can deal with some of the laws that you may be having in your mind, or the areas of suspicion and areas that you don't understand what is happening these days. So, but just few examples that this slide will take is what I have put there. For instance, the Triduum is a movable feast. It is a movable feast. So you don't expect the Triduum to be the same time it is last year. It will be no, it moves. Each year it moves. is a movable feast. So, then the second law that you can see, Good Friday and Holy Saturday are also included as days of fasting. As days of fasting. Holy Saturday, Good Friday and Holy Saturday are also included as days of fasting. I know some of you think that by Good Friday everything ends. Holy Saturday is also included in the day of fasting. Number 3, no Mass is celebrated on Good Friday, that we know. And then number 4, the only sacrament allowed on Good Friday is confessions. No other sacrament is allowed. So I don't want to bother you with what happens in the past and the traditions of the church. You know, in some churches, when I mean churches, I mean things like Anglicans, Methodists, Presbyterians. There is a big debate. For them, some of these churches, Lent ends on Saturday before Palm Sunday. So for them, Lent for them. But for us, it is not so. Even if the Lenten, as we are going to see in the time of discussion, even if the Lent has technically finished, but the fasting continues. The church recommends that the fasting continues. So fast on Saturday, fast on Holy Saturday, fast on Holy Saturday, fast on Good Friday. The only sacrament allowed on Good Friday is confessions. So there are some, we have problem in the Catholic Church, you know. There are some people who want you to do their baptism. There are people who want you to do this. There are people who want you to do that. In many of the places, even in some places that I have worked, there are some dioceses that have said, during the Holy Week, no marriage. No marriage. So, these things are dependent on the pastoral, the church say, pastoral needs of the place. But during the Triduum, in this diocese, I'm not talking of other dioceses, but in this diocese, we don't entertain marriages during the Triduum. We don't. So, even some of us are also don't even entertain it during Lent. So, but that is not what the law of the church say. But we are talking about the practice that is there in our diocese. Okay? The coordinator has told me that we have to take 10 minutes of break. So we are going to take that 10 minutes of break now. So after the 10 minutes of break, when we come back, we go to the next section and then wrap it up there for today. So that next section, you will have time for questions. We have time for discussions. We have time for discussions and other activities. Thank you.
Victime Paschali laudes, immolent Christiani.
Agnus redemptores, Christus innocens Patri, reconciliavit peccatores.
Mors et vita duello conflixere mirando.
So in this section, we have three things to do. The questions, in case there are issues that I have mentioned that you want to ask questions or look for clarifications. Then I will provide the clarifications as much as I can. So then we will have discussions. So normally we are to divide into groups, but at least we are one small group today. So I don't think, unless we decide that we divide into two or we stay together as a group. So we stay together as a group and we do the discussion. And the discussion is very simple. What we are to do is that we are going to list the various aspects of celebration on Holy Thursday. So various aspects of celebration on Holy Thursday. So when we list them, then each and every one of us should be able to point out the aspect that really touches you as a person. You know, that whenever it is that particular day, you are looking forward to this. And that is it. So we do that on Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Holy Saturday, and we wrap it up. In some places, there is this ceremony, and that is what I'll be looking at. Some of the minor, tiny celebrations that go within these days, which sometimes they seem to be dying down or dying out. But have they died out? Has the church scrapped them? That is the question that I want us to raise at these three discussions. Because there are certain things we don't take serious again. Sometimes you wonder whether the church has really scraped up those things, or are they still there? So we'll be looking at them, and we'll be able to assure you the ones that are there, they are still there. And the ones that maybe the church has relegated them or the church has upgraded them. So all those things are there. So that is our question. When does Easter end? Easter ends on the Feast of Pentecost. So I was trying to talk about the minor celebrations. In some dioceses, by the grace of God, I have traveled around myself in my own little way as a missionary. In some dioceses, there is a particular ceremony of the end of Easter. I still practice it. How do you end the Easter celebration? On the Mass of the Pentecost, the Paschal candle is blown off officially in the presence of everybody in the church. That blowing off of the Paschal candle signifies the end of Easter period. And from that day, the Paschal candle is taken from the sanctuary back into the sacristy, or the place where it will stay, and comes out at baptisms or funerals. That one we practice in our diocese, whereby Paschal candles are used during baptisms and funerals. Okay? So, any other question or some clarifications? Yes, yeah.
So my observation is that what really touched me the most is on Good Friday, when we gather in the street and to say the station. And while to say in the station, I think that we should be quiet and think about what really happened to Jesus and what they did to him. And when we come out from there, I think that we should go home and just reflect back on it. Yeah.
That's the point that normally touches Good Fridays. Yes, my dear. So,
why is it that the Stations of the Cross are broken up from the veneration of the cross? Because where I'm from in Jamaica, how I grew up, we went to church at around 12, did the Stations of the Cross throughout the community, then we went back to the church and did the Stations of the Cross. So that took 3.5 hours. And to me, when it is broken up like that, people become lazy and not committed to the sanctity of the day.
Thank you very much. Generally, the Stations of the Cross, just on that, are you listening to me? The Stations of the Cross is not tied to the Good Friday celebration. The Stations of the Cross is not tied to the Good Friday celebration. The Good Friday celebration is different on its own. It starts with the priest procession, the priest coming in and kneeling and lying prostrate on the floor. That is the beginning of the Good Friday ceremonies. Now, Why the Stations of the Cross? The Stations of the Cross is because that is the last Friday of our Lenten period. In some dioceses, people do that Friday Stations of the Cross, that last Stations of the Cross, people do it as early as 5 a.m. They do it as early as 5 a.m. Some people do it at 6. Some people do it at any time at all. But some parishes decided to tie it with the activities of the Passion. So they come at 12 or time close to the Friday liturgy. The Friday ceremony is supposed to begin at 3 p.m. And so they will say the hour of expiration. So the Friday ceremony is supposed to begin at 3 p.m. But some parishes, because of the nature of the pastoral situation, some decide that they will do it at different hour and then come back at 3 p.m. and begin the Friday ceremony. Some parishes begin at 12 or 1 and flow from that Stations of the Cross into the Passion. That is what we do in Tivoli. That is what we do here in St. Andrews. So we come at maybe 1 or 2. And we come at 1 or 2. And then we do the Stations of the Cross. From the Stations of the Cross, no going back home. You move straight into the Good Friday ceremonies. And we'll be finishing around 5, 6, between 5 and 6. And then the remaining part of the evening is spent in silence. Now, in the tradition of the Catholic Church, the ceremony of Good Friday, the priest does not dismiss the people. The priest don't say, go in peace with the ceremony. Everybody walks out in silence. No closing hymn. Once the ceremony ends, both the priest and the people walk out in silence. So, Trinidad, the place you come, the parish you belong to, practice that, tying it together. It is good. It's an idea I love very well. I also practice it, but it doesn't tie the Stations of the Cross to the Good Friday ceremony. That is what a point I'm making. Is that okay? Okay. The media want to hear you.
Why is it necessary for the body of Jesus to lie in repose?
Okay.
Okay, I'm thinking, why?
The body of Jesus Christ to lie.
When we remove him from the
tabernacle,
and then
take it to the altar of repose. Mm-hmm. So we take it from the altar and take it to the altar of repose. What the message the church is communicating to you there is the emptying of himself. Jesus has emptied himself. He has made the ultimate sacrifice. He has given it up. So we move him from the comfort zone to the altar of repose, making a point for all of us. So, is that okay? Yes. Yes.
Father, why we are all here and we understand what you are saying,
Mm-hmm.
I think that before Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, the general congregation should be made aware of what has to be done on those days.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. How I wish that every priest is here to hear you. How I wish that every priest is here to hear you. But we make the point. We make the points. It's all about catechesis. It's all about educating the people. Granted that I have been running my mouth wide for the past 2 Sundays. The 4th Sunday, the 5th Sunday. I will also speak tomorrow about the importance and the activities we are going to engage during the Holy Week. Not just the Triduum, but during the Holy Week. I've been running kind of commentary. But you know what happens? So, but that will not stop us from teaching. Because If you teach 200 people today, 2 might pick what you are saying. Then the other 188, one will pick another day. So as time goes on, that is why in the Catholic Church, repetition is very important. That is why in the Catholic Church, our masses are repeated, our prayers are repeated. Look at the breviary. The morning prayer of the first week of every week is remain the morning prayer for the first week. The morning prayer for the second week remains the morning prayer. So repetition, by that constant repetition, people get what you are saying. So your point is at rem completely. But let's hope that many of us will pick it and work on it.
On Holy Thursday, what really got to me once was the bringing in of the oils that was given to the church on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And it tells me that it tells me about the Triduum. Okay, we started there and we are continuing the continuation.
Yeah.
The oils are brought into the church. Everybody see it one at a time what the oils are, so that they know that these are oils for our use, for the thing. And that strikes me. And I try to make sure it is done in a way that everybody could see. The oil of chrism, the oil, right. That's Holy Thursday. On Good Friday, what really breaks my heart is the veneration of the cross. And sometimes I'm sitting there, I don't want to get up, but it is so profound. Holy Saturday, the exalted. Singing with the angels. It is so profound to me, that exalted. When it is being sung, I
hope those of us who have no good voice, we don't put you off.
Sometimes I remember once I was singing and somebody tell me, "Oh, you can't sing," and I said, "Listen, the Lord say make a joyful noise, and that's what I'm doing."
Very good.
But I sing it, oh boy, with my whole heart.
Thank you very much. Just originally in the church's life, and in the history of the church, on Holy Thursday, there are 3 ceremonies that go on Holy Thursday. The first one is what we call the reception of the penitents. The reception of the penitents. So, normally, originally in the Catholic Church, that practice is no longer there. But has it been cancelled out? Nobody has cancelled it out officially. But is the practice still alive? It is not. I have not seen it recently. But it is good for you to have it as a knowledge that originally in the Catholic Church, that on Holy Thursday, 3 ceremonies take place. The first one is what we call the reception of the penitents. On every Ash Wednesday, each parish points have their penitents. Those who are in those days public sinners. Okay, those who are public sinners. I don't want to go into that because it is a long discussion. They will call us back when they want that. So the public sinners, the parishes select them. And then on Holy Thursday in the morning, all of them will gather in the cathedral. And then the bishop will lead them, the bishop alone, not priest. So because these are from the diocese, the bishop will now lead them as penitents, and then they go through the acts of contrition, and the bishop will talk to them, and at the end of the day, the bishop will give them absolution and forgive their sins, and they make their confession to the bishop, not to the priest. And so the bishop will forgive them and receive them back into communion with the church and in the parish. So mostly some of these people might be people who have been excommunicated, some people who have been ostracized from the church, and so on and so forth. So that is the first ceremony. The bishop does that in the morning, Holy Thursday morning. Then the second ceremony is the blessing of the oil, or the chrism mass. The second ceremony comes the chrism mass in the afternoon, around 12. That is mid-morning and mid-afternoon. Then they have the chrism mass, where the bishop blesses the oil. So originally, this chrism mass we attend on Wednesdays. Its original place is on Thursday. So why many dioceses across the world, why we move it from Thursday to Wednesday or to Tuesday? Even in some places in Africa, we do it even this week. This week, 5th week of the season, because of the distance. Some are traveling up to 3-4 hours, and the roads are not good, and transportation system is not wonderful. So you have to celebrate the chrism mass as early enough as possible, so that the priest can go back to their parishes and start the activities on Holy Thursday. So that is why we have it on Wednesday here, that we will do the chrism mass, go back to our parishes, organize whatever that needs to be organized for the Mass of the Last Supper. But originally, it is reception of penitence, number 1, chrism mass, number 2, and Mass of the Last Supper, number 3. These are the 3 things that happen on Thursday, Holy Thursday. Any questions on this? So, but right now, in the Catholic Church, what happens on Holy Thursday? Mainly, in some dioceses, 2. The chrism mass in the morning and the Mass of the Last Supper in the afternoon. But in some dioceses, like our own, only 1. The Mass of the Last Supper. It all takes place on Holy Thursday. So, penitence, reception of penitence must have been done during this week. The whole period of Lent in the Catholic Church now is a time for us to receive penitence. It's no longer, the church no longer leaves it to the bishop, except special cases. There are special cases that the law of the church instructed us, the priest, that this particular sin is reserved to the bishop. So those ones we know. So that even if the person comes and after confessing her sin, if it is the sin that has to go to the bishop, I will discuss with the person that, look, yes, you have confessed this to me, but I need to take you to the bishop. So the priest does that one-on-one with the individual, and it can happen any day during the year, no longer on Holy Thursdays. Okay? So that is a very a good thing for you to know, so that when you see some of these things practiced somewhere, you will not be, I have not seen that before. Just know that it is there in the church, and it has not been scraped off. So if you happen to run into a diocese that is practicing it, so don't think that they are doing something awful, or is this still a Catholic church? So it is, the practice is there. Now, apart from this particular Holy Thursday, what and what do we celebrate on Holy Thursday, especially the Mass of Last Supper? What and what are the contents of this Last Supper? I will give examples so that you can take it from there. For instance, one of the things we celebrate in this Mass of the Last Supper is the institution of the Holy Eucharist. So we celebrate the institution of the Holy Eucharist. Automatically, that is number 1. Number 2, we celebrate the ordination, the institution of the priesthood. So the celebration of the institution of the Eucharist, celebration of the institution of the priesthood, what other ones do we celebrate? Huh? You know, because you have said it here. Service. We celebrate service. We celebrate service. And that service is seen in the washing of the feet. So we celebrate service. So we celebrate service. So 3 major things. Huh? So we celebrate 3 major things. We celebrate the institution of the Eucharist, institution of the priesthood, and institution of service. That each and every one of us is called to serve. So those are the things that go on Holy Thursday. So, is there aspect of it that you question? Somebody has questioned. Okay, no, not all. So 3. There is another one, the 4th one. The adoration. The adoration on Holy Thursday. The adoration. The adoration of the Eucharist at the altar of repose on Holy Thursday. You see, normal, yes, this your pain is also my pain. Seriously. You see how people don't really understand what the church is doing and how they will be part of it. And that is why this little effort that Deeps is making is very important. So that 6, 9, 10, at least 10 of us here, at least have this knowledge. If 10 of us can impact on 10 different persons, we have 20. If that 20 can impact on another 20, we have 40. So the church believes in gradual spreading of the knowledge and the message. Because our experience, I don't know, but my experience, having been priest here and the whole deanery, if you say to the Catholic people, okay, can we come out on this particular day? We are doing that here in Grenville on Tuesdays. What do you call it? Know Your Faith. How many people come for Know Your Faith? Know Your Faith. How many people come? So there was a time I decided, I said, okay, on Sundays, during homily, I will divide my homily into 2. I will give one part reflecting as the church mandates me that I must preach on the readings of the day. And then I use the other part to do some catechesis on a particular topic. So you know how the Holy Spirit works. Sometimes you will preach, if you allot yourself 20 minutes or 15 minutes here, 15 minutes here. Sometimes you notice that you use the 20 minutes, 30 minutes in one section. So if you go to the second section, people begin. People are already tired and they are looking at their time. Oh, this man is beginning to go into that. And you see people going to urinate. They start going to urinate. And from going to urinate and going into their cars and driving home. So these are the challenges that are there. But are there things for us to learn? Yes. But do we make out the time? That's the problem. Yes.
As you spoke on that point,
Yes.
where I lived in Jamaica,
Yeah.
there was a 7-day Adventist church stop the road.
Yes.
And about 5 to about 7 on Friday, you would see them because they're dressed in uniform
Yeah.
going there. And then for Saturday for the whole day. And they're not complaining. You see them walking with their lunch kit. And then they would get a break. And then they would go back and they would not complain. And when I think about us, we want Mass to be exactly 1 hour. 1.5, if so much, and then we complain. Why we complaining? But because I'm used to that, it does not bother me, because in Jamaica we don't stick to time. We go beyond time.
That's the general observation. That right here in this church, people said, "Oh, Father, you preach very well, but it's too long. Cut it down." Inside the church here, they rush me, not once, not twice, many times. And these are people you expect that should know. People you expect that should know. They will rush you and tell you, "Oh, your messages are nice, but it's too long. Too long." Huh? Exactly. Thank you very much. People, I think, that is the right thing. You are right. People, I think, or people I was thinking that they should know. And they don't even know. For them, time is the ultimate. Not the message, not the commitment. Time. So, if your mass exceeds 1 hour, 30 minutes, you have committed a crime. Yeah. And I don't know who programmed that into our mentality as Catholics. But the same Catholics will leave this our church and spend 3, 4, 5 hours. And that same Catholics that find it difficult to spend 1 hour, 2 hours in the church, they will sit in the bar and drink a bottle of Carib for 3 hours. A bottle of Carib for 3 hours. Yes. Yes.
Yeah? I always, when I am asked to do any catechesis, I would say to them, I said, the same people who are staying 2 and 3 hours, and I would use the church's name, you are the same people who complain and say the priest preaching too long, or the priest attacking me. They say that. If I am not going to long, I was personally attacked once.
Okay, so I'm not the only one. Thanks be to God. I have partners.
Yeah, I was told by a lady, when I was a Catholic, nobody saw when I used to go and thief the people's nutmegs. I said, you know what? You tell us that we must not confess, but when you, that's what you're saying now.
Yes.
You confess, I said the police should come and pick you up. You know, so we know what we're supposed to do. It's just that maybe how we tell them about it in church, they're not, maybe they like it raw. So maybe we should be a little more drastic.
Use cane. So that is the truth of the whole thing. And I'm happy that it's an experience that we all live with and we see it on a daily basis. So how do we challenge this? We challenge this by what we are doing now. If you call a crowd, if you go there in a Sunday mass and speak about these things, you create enemies, you create division, you create some animosities. Some will not come back, and they will tell you, "Oh, he chased me." They begin to appoint people. "Oh, Miss so-and-so has really chased me out of the church." You ask what you have done, you will not see it. So, and they are basically looking for areas and avenues to pick quarrel. And we are saying we are not going to pick quarrels with anyone. We organize things like this, bit by bit, and we see how the Holy Spirit will take it from there. So that is what we are doing now. So let's move faster so that, remember, we have said in Holy Thursday that there are 4 things we celebrate. Number 1 is what? Institution of the Eucharist. Number 2, institution of the Eucharist, of the priesthood. Number 3, institution of service. And number 4, adoration of the Eucharist. Adoration of the Eucharist. So that is the ceremony that go on this Holy Thursday. Now there is this ceremony which is very profound, but people don't take it serious. The procession from the church with the Eucharist to the altar of repose. So there is a procession, but I normally fight because sometimes when we end that mass and we are to begin the altar of repose, hey, good morning, good afternoon, how are you? Hey, you okay? Hey. You see unnecessary noise, people begin to turn the whole thing into a marketplace. But it is what we call solemn moment. Solemn moment. And that solemn moment is the moment of accompanying Jesus. It's a time of accompanying Jesus, to the agony, to the Gethsemane. And in the whole scripture, they didn't tell us that Simon, James, Peter, and Paul, and Andrew, and Philip, that they were all talking and making noise. Everybody was following silently and wondering what is going to happen next. And that is what we are trying to put into action. But people are not. They don't understand.
With the sacrament, tell them that this is very solemn. They
Yes.
should walk in procession with you. And then when you get to the altar of repose, you should stay there for at least an hour. The service or the mass does not end until another hour. Let them know.
You see? Yes. You will make the... You see, what Miss Philomena is saying is really quite different from what you are suggesting. My experience with our people is that they don't treat announcement as anything. They don't treat announcement as anything. If you are making an announcement, just say, how many people heard what I said? You will be surprised that not up to 10 people hears the announcement in a church. So it takes the effort of the priest must stand there and say it repeatedly. Say it repeatedly. But I tell you, even me who is telling you this, I don't teach what I don't do. I will stand there, put the Blessed Sacrament, because I do the procession. Number one, I carry the Eucharist in the monstrance. Then I will have 2 Eucharistic ministers that will carry the Eucharist in the ciborium. So the ciborium, then followed by the altar servers with the lighted candles on this. So we proceed. But as soon as Father moves, market continues at behind. With all the things you said, that is a solemn moment. Will you go and start talking when you are already carrying the Blessed Sacrament and be moving? So it takes the effort of some of us. And I'm telling you, if you start doing it, don't be surprised that you will create enemies for yourself. But it is a worthy cause. Because if you are on the line and somebody comes to talk to you and you say, you become the object of the whole, and then the person, whatever the person will say behind you, only God knows what the person will say behind you, which you will not be there. But the message has to be passed, and the knowledge has to be communicated. So we continue doing our best, but these are realities we are facing. Then on Good Friday, what are the ceremonies that go on Good Friday? Now, I want us to see, because apart from sister, what happens in Grand Dance? Do you tie the Stations of the Cross with the Passion activities? Okay, you have
6 a.m.
Stations of the Cross,
6
in the
a.m.
morning,
then 3 p.m.
3 p.m. Okay. Any of that person from a different parish? In your parish, what happens in your parish? Holy Rosary.
We start at 1.
You start the Stations of the Cross at 1.
Yeah.
Do you have a break, or you just from that one you move into the activities?
So when we get to the church, there's a little break,
Uh-huh.
and then we start.
Okay. Okay.
Cross, and then we go straight into the service.
Or you do the Stations of the Cross at what time? At 1 o'clock. Okay. That is. Where do you come from? Wolf. What happens? How do you do it?
The Stations of the Cross at 2 p.m. in the evening.
2 p.m. in the evening.
Yes.
And then you move straight into the church.
Into the church.
Yes. Now, do you notice the trajectory? Now, where the MSPs, of which I am one of them, where the MSPs are walking or where they have walked, we establish the tradition of you do the Stations of the Cross and you move straight into the Passion. That is the MSP. And where the Dominicans walk, they do the Stations of the Cross in the morning. And now, through discussions with some of us, they are also now starting to do like in the afternoon, but not finish, but they will just do it at 1, maybe finishing around 2 or 2:15, and they relax a little bit till 3 and they start. But with us, MSPs, you don't rest. It's one single activity from the Stations of the Cross straight into the church, and you are moving straight into the next activity. So by the time you finish, you are exhausted, and you go and stay for the of the cross and ask God for your strength to come back. So, but these are traditions. So none is better than the other. There is none is better than the other. It means it's just the way the people have tried to form the communities based on the situation they found on ground. Okay? So that is the point I'm going to make here. So that there are different traditions in different places. So in that Good Friday, so we start with the Stations of the Cross. The fact is that Stations of the Cross must be done on that Good Friday. It's a must. Whether you do it in the morning, you do it in the afternoon. But you must do the Stations of the Cross of Good Friday before 3 p.m. Are you with me? The Stations of the Cross of Good Friday must come before 3 p.m. so that the 3 p.m., the liturgy of the Passion takes place. Then on Good Friday, then within that liturgy, we have 3 or 4 different, if you put Stations of the Cross, it becomes 4. So you have the liturgy of the Word. Now you have the liturgy of the Word, and then you have the veneration of the cross, then you have the communion service. And then the 4th one is adoration continues. This time around, the adoration of the Holy Thursday is before the Blessed Sacrament. But adoration of Good Friday is before the cross. Are you with me so far? So, because I have had experience whereby after the Good Friday activities, somebody was asking me, where is the altar, or where is the chapel of repose? I want to go and do my adoration. I said, no, today's adoration is not there. Today's adoration is in front of the cross. And that is why when the priest is unveiling the cross, he said, this is the wood of the cross on which our Savior hung out here. This is the wood of the cross on which hung the Savior of the world. Come, let us worship. So that is the wood of the cross. And that is the center of action on that very day. Now, this is a knowledge. Some of this knowledge are just for your personal knowledge. They are not knowledges you can easily teach. So some of the knowledges you gain in a situation like this are personal knowledge. They are not knowledges you can easily teach. For instance, this very one, the kissing, the veneration of the cross. The veneration of the cross. You will notice that some people come and kiss the head, some people kiss the neck, some people kiss all parts of the thing. But actually, the recommendation of the church is that it should be done at the foot of the foot. At the foot. But somebody who understands it that, well, I want to venerate the side, will you say to the person, stop? No, you will say to the person, stop. So that is why some of this knowledge is for you to know that actually the recommendation of the church is the foot of the cross. That is why they said, at the foot of the cross, there is no other person there except few women that they mentioned their names, who were at the foot of the cross, worshiping, waiting, and adoring the Lord on the cross. So, but if anybody decides to venerate any other part of the cross, fine and good. Yes, that is the thing. Yeah, it's veneration. What happens is what is going on in your mind and in your heart. Your mind and your heart. Your mind and your heart, as far as your mind and your heart is saying, I'm here to adore. I am here to venerate Jesus on the cross. So there are some in my parish, they will the cross will be far out like that place. They will stop here and take a deep, profound bowing. And they go back. So that is as a result of where they come from. So maybe that is what they have been taught. But the important thing is that it is a time to show respect and to the cross of which Jesus died. But for you, as a core Catholic, this is actually meant to be venerated at the foot. Okay? So, on Good Friday, what do we celebrate again? The Ascension of the Cross. The liturgy, or what? Yeah. Veneration of the cross and communion service. And adoration of the cross after that. So these are the things that happen on this Good Friday. That is human communication. Some don't communicate it very well. Those who want to go back should go back silently. Those who are leaving should leave silently, so that those who are staying will stay silently. I think I should tell them to be making it explicit that we must now live in silence. No, I think that is a wrong expression. The right expression is that those who are living, please live in silence. And those who are staying should stay in silence to worship and reflect on the activities of the cross. And that is why the cross is dressed specially and put out there with lighted candles for those who want to stay and venerate the cross more. So, on Holy Saturday, it is advisable that we pray the morning prayer together as a community. We do the office of reading together as a community. Those are the days that the church recommends the Eucharist, the office of the reading to be done with the community. The morning prayer and the office of the reading to be done with the community. Yeah, definitely. That's why I'm telling you. Because we don't do these things. Yes, we have a lot to do. But this is one of it. And the fact is that it must not be the priest leading all these prayers. That is why there are people who are called catechists within the community, catechists, Eucharistic ministers, reverend sisters, and all of us who do one thing or the other in the church. One person can lead the morning prayer, and from the morning prayer, we do the office of reading. Or there is a way we normally combine the two, the morning prayer and the office of reading combined. So that is the first activity that we are expected to do on a Holy Saturday. Yes? Uh-huh. Yes. Before any other thing. So it is done almost that time of morning mass. If the people are doing their morning mass at 6, you do it at 6. When people gather for morning mass, instead of having morning mass, you have the morning prayer and the office of reading, and then you go. And then people will continue their reflections, prayer, and everything in silence. Then our coming back again will be for the vigil. For the vigil. Now, people normally ask the questions. Can there be other masses celebrated on a Saturday? On Friday, no mass at all. But on Saturday, can there be other masses celebrated? The ideal thing is that it's no. But there are some situations where the bishop can give permission that mass be celebrated for different reasons. For instance, if you it's not here, but in other places where you have the home for retired reverend sisters, they can't go anywhere. So it is permitted that a special mass be said for them, because they cannot come for the evening liturgy, for the evening vigil, and you can't just leave them like that. So the same with maybe elderly people's home, whereby the elderly people there are mainly Catholics. And they are Catholics who know their onions, not Catholics by name. So if you have some people of this kind in the diocese, and the home is run by the diocese, and the home is organized by Catholics, then the bishop can give permission that something be done for them on Saturday. But on Friday, no. Are you with me so far? Okay. So those are the activities that can take place during the day. And then at night, the vigil. Now, this vigil, there is a law governing the vigil. There is a law governing the vigil. And the first law governing this vigil is that this vigil must not start until sunset. The vigil of Holy Saturday must not start until sunset. So, whatever is the sunset in your place, and then that is the starting time. The same also on Holy Thursday. On Holy Thursday, the Mass of the Last Supper starts at the evening time. Now, when we say evening time on Holy Saturday, we mean as from 3 p.m. upwards. 3 p.m., 4 p.m. upwards. That is what we regard as evening time. So on Holy Thursday, the Mass of the Last Supper can start at 4, can start at 5, 6, 7, upwards. Then, and it must end before 12. On Holy Thursday, it must end before 12. Then, on Holy Saturday, the Mass begins at sunset. Many places, the sunset is regarded as 6 p.m. So many places, the the mass of the vigil begins 6, 7, 8, 9, within that range. So I don't know. In Tivoli, we start at 9. So I don't know what happens. When do you start here? 8. When do you start at Woburn? Monjelu? 7. What do you start at? 9. When do you start? 9. Okay. So generally, most of the parishes in Grenada start around 8, 9. So allow that. So the vigil on Holy Saturday, that vigil is packed with activities. The first activity is the lighting of the fire, the Easter fire. You know, sometimes people miss certain things because they don't understand them. You see some people, they are coming for mass of the Saturday vigil, and they are coming around that. By that, many of the ceremonies have taken place. So the first activity is the fire. And that fire signifies a lot. You know, it signifies the fact that, remember, when we go out of the church, every light is switched off. So that means that she sets the tune that the world is in darkness. The world is in darkness. Not necessarily physical darkness, but the darkness of sin, the darkness of evil, the darkness of all kinds. So that is the switching of the light, the world that is in darkness. And then this world that is in darkness now gets a fire. The fire is lighted and blessed. And then the Paschal candle is lit and raised up. The shout, Lumen Christi, light of Christ. We say thanks be to God. That is, that the light of Christ is coming into the darkness. So that is the first activity that we do, and we move on with it. Then as soon as we get into the church, we will light. You see, there's, I will tell you what the church says. But what some of us practice as priests might be a little bit different here and there. It doesn't mean that we are totally wrong, but it's just the priest must have studied his community and is trying to do what is best for his community. Then the church recommends that the first Lumen Christi is shouted at the place where the fire is lit. And then the Paschal candle alone is lighted at that place. Then every other person walks with their candle without any light. And then we come to the door of the church. And then we shout the second one, Lumen Christi, light of Christ. Thanks be to God. Now, the church expects us to still walk in darkness to enter the church. And when you come to the altar and you shout the third one, Lumen Christi, thanks be to God, then the other and the candle of the people takes simultaneously, which means the light arrived and we are. But some of us, including me, I ask the people to light their candle at the door. So the first one, we light the candle, Paschal candle, and we walk with the Paschal candle in darkness until we reach the door of the church. And when I shout the second one, and then the people will light their candle, and we now walk. That is the ceremony of the fire. And that ceremony of the fire ends with the singing of the exultates. Rejoice, heavenly powers, sing choirs of angels. Exalt, O you ministers of God's people, and so on and so forth. So, and it is good that you please look at the words of that song. If you look at the words of that song, you will fall in love with it. I'm telling you, once you look at the words of that song, and especially if God has given you the power to understand poetry. Oh, if you don't hear it on Holy Saturday, you will say there was no vigil. You said there was no vigil. Because the words are so profound and so rich. So I will recommend that we read that words. No, just have a few ideas. Because when it starts describing certain things, you will just marvel. You know? You see, it comes to the end of it. It will tell you, the priest will stretch out his candle to the Paschal candle. You say, this Paschal candle, a flame that is divided but undimmed. You know? And so on and so forth. So that is the first one. The ceremony ends that. Then the second ceremony is the liturgy of the word. We begin to read the lessons. Now, some people think that there must be 7 readings. So the church has given 7 readings, that though you may not do the 7 readings, depending on the pastoral situation. So I love doing the 7 readings, but this year I told my parish that we are going to do 4. And I hear, so they don't want to do 4. But I insisted that I'm going to do 4 to give the younger people who are growing up to know that you can do it this way or you can do it this way. Sometimes we remain so attached to one particular style that we deprive the whole generation of knowing the other side of it. So they agreed with me, but with some, okay, Father. So that is what happened. So that in as much as the 7 readings of the Old Testament are recommended, but you can do 3, you can do 4, you can do 5. So, but there are ones that are compulsory. So I'm not going to say that to you. So I leave that every priest to deal with that before I go into general things. But one that must be read is number 3. That is the deliverance of the people of Israel from slavery into Egypt. And that reading ends, it was there that the Israelites sang this song. I will sing to the Lord, glorious is triumph. To the sea, yes. So that is the one reading that you must not omit. Even if you are doing only one reading, that must be read. And so on and so forth. So that takes the readings. Then after the readings of the Old Testament, we go to the readings of the New Testament. We have a reading from the New Testament. Then we have the proclamation of the Easter, glory, Easter, hallelujah. And then the gospel. Then after that, after the readings, the preaching takes place. Then the next ceremony that comes in is the ceremony of the baptism. Baptism or reception of new Christians into the church. So sometimes these days, we don't normally some parishes don't have people to baptize on Easter. And I keep telling people, don't just because you want to fulfill this part of the liturgy, you think every Tom, Dick, and Harry are to baptize. You are killing the spirit. You are killing the whole exercise. The exercise that those who have been prepared through RCIA. If you have not prepared anybody through RCIA, why bringing anybody just to fulfill that? The church knows that at times this may not be possible. That is why the church says, if you have no baptism, you do the renewal of baptismal promises. Then if you have baptism, you do baptism, and you still do the renewal of baptismal promises for old people like us who have been there in the church. So with that, one of the required things is that during that renewal, or either the renewal of the baptism or baptism, that the litany of the saints be recited or be sung. But sometimes you see some parishes just omit that section. Oh, we have nobody for baptism. We throw away all that section. Now, but if there are no people for baptism, we are there. We are going to renew our baptism. Please call the saints to come and help us. We need their intercession. We need their intercession. So even if there is no baptism, but there are people in the church to renew their baptism, let the litany of the saints be done, so that with the saints will help us. So with that, we go to the first Mass, the first Eucharistic celebration, which is the Mass of the Resurrection, that same night. So we leave it there. That is what happens on Holy Saturday. Any comments, any remarks? The media team are here because 12 agreement is agreement, 12 is 12. So once again, I want to thank you. You have been wonderful students. You have listened patiently, and participation was very alive and active. So you can clap for yourselves. You did well. Thank you. So,
Victime Paschali laudes, immolent Christiani.
Agnus redemptores, Christus innocens Patri, reconciliavit peccatorem.
Mors et vita duello conflixere mirando.